I thought I was in paradise. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever been.
And the beauty is just, breaks your heart. It's so wonderful.
In a way, it's a Garden of Eden. The trees, the redwoods, the oaks, the fog in the summertime that comes in and sits in the smell of the air at about 11 o'clock when the fog burns off. It's a very special place.
I could see elderberry bushes blooming, and the mist was rising from them, and the mist was lit up by the sun, and the sun was just making everything sparkling and bright and clean, and feeling the feeling of breathing in the oxygen that was being produced by those berry bushes. And I had started this off as if it were an ordinary day. And then here was this amazing gift of the oxygen. And all I had to do was realize and accept it.
Did I change? Did my life change? Of course.
Just being in a beautiful place all the time, I think, is really good for the soul.
Well, I am who I am because I was raised in Graton as far as I'm concerned. My name is Judy Tanner, and I've lived in Graton for over 80 years. Is that good enough? Or do I have to say how old I am?
My name is Lesa Tanner. I was born at Palm Drive Hospital in Sebastopol. So I've lived here all my life, so 63 years. When I was a kid, I could go as far as I wanted as long as I was home by the time the train came through town at 5. That was our signal. We heard the train whistle, you were supposed to go home. Now, my mother, growing up in Graton, would say, no, you don't have anywhere near the freedoms that I had growing up in Graton.
As I used to tell my girls, don't think you can do anything because I probably already did it when I was a kid. We used to have down at the cannery where, well, of course, where the wine place is now, and it was just a big empty lot with this fountain in there. And everybody learned to do donuts and go down there and spin around and come back up through town and then come back down through town, and we'd go up and down the sidewalks with it and stuff, just what kids do.
We had a neighbor who had a horse that didn't care if we didn't saddle or do anything. We just got on the horse. My friend and I, 2 of us, held on to her mane and rode her out. Now I think I would never let my kids do that.
I have never ever in my life even been afraid here. To me, it's the safest place in the world. I let my kids run. I never worried about them. Because Graton was a self-contained town. Now, that's one thing it was when I was a kid. We had a grocery store. We had a meat market. We had a hardware store. We had the post, all in Graton, And it was, because what I said, I was probably 10 years old before I went to Santa Rosa.
When I was a kid, it was apples, apples, apples. And it was apples for a long time. And my grandparents worked at the cannery. My mother worked at the cannery. My aunts worked at the cannery. I mean, the cannery was, a very big part of downtown.
And of course, Skip's was the center place of our whole group. Everybody went to Skip's.
It was a very special place. Hamburgers, beer and wine and everything. And the guy was an ex-cop. He used to cash the checks for the workers. You come with your check. He will charge you $3 or whatever and give you cash. And he has under the counter, they had all the money. We go, yeah, one. And also a 45 pistol or whatever you call it, this gun, in case.
So I walked up to the bar and I said, are you Richard Swinger? And he goes, yes. And he goes, I said, I'm Orring Thiessen. I'm your new landlord. I just bought the building. And I reached out my hand to shake his hand, and he took a puff on a cigarette and blew smoke in my face. So I actually got to run, skip, spore, and grow for a while. It was the most expensive beer I ever drank. Myrtle was 80 years old and running a little lunch stand right here.
It was fun. Every farmer within a 10-mile radius came in almost every day for coffee. They all had regular coffee times. Myrtle just did the rest all by herself. She was amazing.
When people went to a gas station, they expected somebody to do it for them. But anyway, she'd be out there pumping gas, and she'd run over there and flip the burgers, then go back there and pump gas.
Myrtle, she paid me $2 an hour. And she said, and you get to keep your tips. And if they did one, they made me shake dice for it. And then they'd double or nothing it. But, most of the time it ended up not. I didn't get it because I wasn't that good at shaking dice. But I got better as I worked there longer.
30 years ago, I called my friend Christy, hey, I need a recipe for a dessert. Okay, you ready? Yeah. Boom. Flan. People around this region, they know flan and Mexico lindo. My name is Mario Ramos, and I came to Graton in the summer 1990 as an exchange teacher. I came here to the community to help the kids at the elementary school and junior high school in Willowside to help them with their Spanish. So one of the ladies teachers let me use her guitar. It was all I had, and so I started singing with the kids, playing at the soccer, whatever it was, activities where I could, use my Spanish and kind of get the kids into the game. And I was a single parent. I realized that I was a long way for me to get my credentials and establish myself. So I started looking for a place to start a restaurant. And so I ended up here. In a month, I set up the Mexican restaurant. It was quite an adventure. I just kept going. I started developing the menu, listening to people. We have a very good menu here. People don't know. We are kind of hidden here. And I am not a business person. Like you try to trick people and do things and charge for these things. You come here, you have your chile relleno, you have your tamal, whatever it's affordable. And we, for a year, every Friday, you could go to Mexico lindo for salsa, real salsa, drums and everything. I had gringos and Mexican and all kinds of people coming. We were a group of about 30 people with guitars, mandolin, the accordion, a bass. And we did our festival, and we present the group, and it was just like magic for me. It was magic. I lately with this routine, all these things going on right now that we better making, I rather go back to that, to that time. It was beautiful.
Honor your past. Honor the fact that Graton started with Pomo and Miwok, and then the pioneers, and then people who came from all over the United States to work here because of our agriculture. Then people who came here to do art. Then people who came here for entrepreneurship or whatever. Honor that you can bring what you have and go forward.
When the Europeans first came here, they thought it was a wilderness that they could, just do whatever they wanted with. But actually, it had been tended for thousands of years, not hundreds of years, thousands of years by the original humans who lived here, the Pomo and Kosniwak and Wapho people.
Graton only exists because the Green Valley is here. Green Valley was first, and it's why these two guys from Santa Rosa were attracted to come here and create the town of Graton. So they just laid out a grid, named the streets after their children, and sold lots to people.
There was 2 towns, one built in 1905 and then the whole town burned down, and then it got rebuilt in 1915, which is, so when you're looking at the buildings, some of them are circa 1915 and some circa 1905. And actually the 1905 buildings were nicer, so we researched the history, got photos, and then we rebuilt the buildings from the photos. Actually, right where we're sitting here was, originally there was a big livery stable, 2-story, beautiful building. The community wanted a community center, so they bought the building and hired a mover to move the building, and they moved it, that big building, they moved it from the other side of Tasdale Creek, and when they got to the railroad tracks, the telephone poles, it didn't fit under the lines. So it ended up costing them as much to take down the lines and put them back up as it did to move the building. So they got the building up here, and guess what they hadn't figured? It was backwards. And they didn't want to try to turn it around. So they put it in place with the back of the building facing this way, the front the other way. So at one time, this is really the business district was really busy here, and it's before all the big box stores and everything, people shopped local. They shopped right here. So this town was full of all these businesses. But over the years, the buildings deteriorated, and people started shopping out of town and stuff. So one by one, the buildings went out of business.
But again, when it was all related to the apples, right? Those are who ate downtown were apple growers and farmers. And when that declined, everything downtown declined. So from the late 70s till the mid 90s, downtown looked dead from the outside. It was ramshackle and it looked scary, and there were lots of fights, and it was just,
There was junk cars and trash and really deteriorating homes and stuff like that. Especially on Friday and Saturday night, there was fights and murders. It was pretty rough place.
And we got rid of some guys that, they were drunks here early morning, things like that. And I told them, we didn't come here to do this spectacle. We didn't come to put a show like this. This is not okay. And I succeeded. They get rid of some bad apples. I kind of feel not feel very good about saying this, but it happened.
One thing I noticed that was really pretty obvious is that one by one, properties were getting sold and redone, and people were fixing them up.
Infrastructure started happening, and it was good. So now it's thriving downtown. I mean, it's lively. Like, there's no parking.
The town was totally packed with people, and we had live bands playing, and people were just walking around looking at each other. This is amazing. This is our town, and it was kind of like a spark that everybody saw what the future could be, that this town could really be something.
I really felt like this is the place I want to live and raise my kids. I want to raise my kids in a place where there are all different kinds of people.
Well, people like to think that Graton was all rednecks and all like monolithic or something. I don't know. It's not. Graton has been so incredibly diverse always.
To have dinner, to get to know the parents, so the kids were excited to having a Spanish teacher, someone who could speak different than they did.
You know, there was a real diversity of folk here. There was a lot of artists and creative people, farmers. It was really a place where working class families could afford to live.
Through the years, the last 20 years, I saw people having a hard time keeping their way of life here. They sold their properties for good money, and they moved to places that could, find cheaper land or whatever. And I saw a lot of that exodus.
Housing is a huge challenge here in this community.
Housing, I think, is definitely going to be the big thing right now. People are desperate for housing.
It's expensive to live today for a person, you know. I can't believe the prices of the property in Graton. I don't know what people are thinking. $1 million for a house? Come on.
But I'm worried that, that over time, Graton's going to be a community of millionaires. I've worked very hard my whole life, oftentimes working 2 or 3 jobs and have a number of college degrees, and I could never buy a $900,000 house. How do people who were born and raised here stay here and raise their families?
He sold his property because he was kind of getting to a point that things were very hard for him. And a lot of friends, they move away. And rich people come and get there,
There's only so much land that you can use to build housing, and we're starting in the low 800,000s. We're not going to solve the housing issue. That we have to build not just affordable housing, but we have to build housing for low-income folks as well, for the people who work in our restaurants and our fields, our custodians in our schools, our paraeducators, our aides in our schools.
We need to be, again, open to housing. That's different housing, not just, everybody has this much land and this kind of a single family home.
Now, how does the population doesn't go up and traffic triples? What costs all that? Well, they stopped residential growth, but they didn't stop commercial growth at all. They did absolutely nothing in fact, they encouraged the wine industry. They encouraged commercial growth.
I've seen it. I've seen the creeping growth of grapes, vineyards taking over orchards and forests. I think that monoculture idea of dominate, control, and extract is deadly to the landscape and ultimately deadly to us.
We are a community where there are haves and have-nots. And it's very easy to put on blinders and not pay attention, just to pretend like that isn't happening.
It's going to be a huge challenge to make sure that is not normalized and that is not seen as an acceptable way of relating to each other. And somehow we haven't been able to find a way to do that. And so there's a lot of work to do.
There's a history of day laborers going back, into like the 1930s. Even pre-Dust Bowl, there was, waves of Chinese workers who came through this way. And the 1930s at the Dust Bowl, there were many Anglo laborers who came into this community from Oklahoma and areas affected by the Dust Bowl and like settled here. I know people who those were their grandparents. And then in the 50s and 60s, we have the Bracero program. And this is an important part of the story of Green Valley and Graton, and it needs to be heard and told. And my name is Christy Lubin. I like to brag about the Day Labor Center because it's such an incredible place. But, a lot of people think of it as like, oh, it's just this hiring hall, but it's so much more than a hiring hall. It's a place it's a community hub, but it's a place where solidarity flourishes, where liberation happens. In the early 90s, around the time of NAFTA and the free trade agreement, there was a huge immigration flux in this country. But people, when they often talk about farm workers and laborers, they put more emphasis on the impact they're having on the community or impact they're having on the environment rather than the impact that the economic system and the labor system is having on the people themselves. So finally, we just decided to do what other communities had done is we started a hiring process in a Day Labor Center right on the corner in front of the Graton Community Center. And we were out there Monday through Saturday from 2004 through 2007.
Now we don't have people here at the sidewalk. There's a labor center, which started here. And the workers, at one point, they meet here. I cancel my breakfast time, and we have coffee, English classes.
Many facets of the local government were involved. Mario Ramos, who owns Mexico Lindo, he was a key player in helping bring some of those folks together. Mario always supported the workers. He was a place before there was a Day Labor Center.
And we, thanks to him and to the community and to everything, we were able to agree in having a place for a safe place for the workers to wait for jobs.
And I think that this Day Labor Center and the day laborers have made this community a better place, a healthier place, because it was pretty hateful the way things were back in the 90s and early 2000s. I will tell you one challenging story because I think this needs to be told. So it was probably around 2004, 2003. There was a laborer who had been killed, and they couldn't find him initially. We heard that there was a violent incident. We don't know where he is. And they met with the workers on the street, and everyone was kind of hush. I believe he had been robbed. It was around harvest, and he had a lot of cash, like a lot of workers do. And he was robbed and beaten and left for dead. But it wasn't so much that event, it's what happened afterwards. And this is a little clue into what did it look like here 20 years ago. The sheriff's department launched an investigation, and in one night they conducted a series of raids. And my husband woke me up and he said, "Wake up, come here, get down." And we have this big window and we look, we're 15 feet from the street. And there were multiple sheriff's units out there, and there was the big homicide investigation van. And there were about 6 worker Mexican men laying face down on the street, no shoes, in their underwear and their jeans, no shirts, and handcuffed. And they were out there for hours while their homes were turned over and searched. So this went on from about 3 a.m. till it got light. And as soon as it got light, it ended and it was all gone, when it became visible. But this happened in the middle of the night, and we just sat there and we watched that for 3 hours. And in a way, it's so unbelievable. Oh, this is Graton, Green Valley, West County. We're so cool. This is the best place, but things like that have happened here, that just kind of remind you things aren't always as they seem to be. And you always kind of have to look at things from different angles, and you have to look at things from other people's perspectives. And really looking at how life is for others.
You know, people are the same everywhere. Governments change, and politicians and all these people that think they know everything, but people are the same. Before I came here, I hear all kinds of stories, bad stories about gringos. Some people internalize some kind of hate or not. When you land with the people, then you realize that we are the same. We're the same.
There's still part of us that remembers the sense of family. I think there's some place in all of us who wants that, who wants to be part of the family of all beings, not to be the ruler or the king. Let's tend our relations. I think we can do that. We can do that starting now. Just, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just to see the dignity or personhood of the other forms of life, then you treat them with respect. There's a scrub jay that lives here that that he and I have been friends for 9 years now, since the fires at least. And I know he loves me and I love him. And it's that's so enriching to me. That's so encouraging to me. I want that for everybody. We all deserve that.
I will hope that people will remember that you never cut down a tree that's over 100 years old, ever, and always plant new trees. And 7 generations in the future, I hope all the oaks are still thriving. I hope there are oaks and I hope that there are redwoods.
You don't need to be rich, filthy rich to help. You just need to band together with people on the same page and come up with programs and do your little part. Go clean up the road. You know what? We focus in our community, in our beautiful communities, and help each other. And that's what it is.
We all have to find a way to live together. But part of that living together is taking care of each other and supporting those who don't have the same privilege. I really believe in, changing systems so that people can self-determine and help themselves. And the only way that that can happen is if you listen to people and talk to people and find out what it is that they need to have that power in themselves and that power in their community.
Welcoming the idea that new people will come, welcoming the idea that things will be different, but that they will still be good. And the value to hold on to in that is community, is knowing that your neighbors are your neighbors, whoever they are, and enjoy them, and don't get caught up in some idea that things always have to be the way they were.
Somehow, I have a feeling that the best is yet to come. We can start right now, right here, doing it the best we can.